and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another 10 pens currently inked up today. So I think let's briefly go through these one by one, and we'll go through them in a little bit more detail, and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right, we have the Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the Tectonic Seas, an Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the King Cobra, an Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the Vulcan's Forge, a Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermilion, a Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento 0 in the Mediterraneo, a Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento 0 in the Hawaii, a Pelican M805 Ocean Swirl, a Pelican M805 Vibrant Blue, a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog, and a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence. So let's take a look at these pens in a little bit more detail. So this is a really lovely swirly pattern of blues and green hues, and this is a pen that I had made from Eric at Atelier Eluso, and he is at lusopens.com. This really is a lovely swirl pattern, and this was a pattern that I had picked out from a rod manufacturer myself, and I wanted made into a pen. So this, with all of the Atelier Eluso pens, I have a broad steel Yovo nib on these, and I just like these. I like how they write. They put down a moderately wet line, not a fire hose wet line, but it's wet enough, but it's also quite quick to dry. These are all cartridge converter pens, so you will see here that it does have a cartridge converter, and I'm going to ink this up with a new ink this week that I'm going to be writing with more, because I haven't actually changed the colour of inks in this pen for some time. So I'm going to do that today, and then I'll be writing with this for the rest of the week. The next pen is another Atelier Eluso Andromeda, and this is the King Cobra. And again, this is another pen that I had from a rod stock material that I searched for online, and I really like the look of. So yes, it is a King Cobra there, and it is a lusopens.com pen from Eric at Atelier Eluso. But this material really is quite stunning. It's a material that I like a lot, and I have actually broken with tradition on this one, because normally I ink it up with Diamine Skull and Roses, but this week I actually have it inked up with a golden ink, and I always said that I would probably at some point ink this up with a golden ink, and I have done. So we'll see how that one sort of writes and performs. We also have this one, and this again is another Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the Vulcan's Forge. So you can see how I like these pens quite a lot. And again, this was another material that I handpicked myself. I wanted a fiery orange, and this one really doesn't disappoint. And again, this has a broad steel nib there, so this really is a nice writing pen. These caps don't post, by the way, just so you know, on these Andromedas. I wouldn't want them to post. The sections are a little bit smaller than what I tend to normally go for, but I do like them, and more lately I tend to write up a little bit higher with these pens. These are all cartridge converter, the Atelier Eluso pens. And then I have the Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermilion, and this really is a honker of a pen. It's a very, very large pen. It's quite a weighty pen as well, and it has a number 30 size nib from Pilot, and this nib really is glorious. I find that this is more like a number 9 or number 10 size Western nib. You can, if you wanted to, post this, but it does become a real wand. And I wouldn't want to post this much because of the Urushi on here. This is a cartridge converter. It actually, I'll show you here, it does have a Con 70 here, so this is actually sort of running a little bit low on ink, and I probably need to ink that one back up again, and I will put some more corn poppy red in that, because I do have corn poppy red in there at the moment. Maybe I should change to a different ink, but I just love corn poppy, and I have actually bought another 3 bottles of corn poppy red because it's now an ink that has gone end of life, and it's an ink that I do love. I find flows really well, and I like the colour of the red, especially in very fire hose wet nibs. This isn't a fire hose nib though, but it still writes really lovely. The next pen here is the Leonardo, and this is the Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero in the Mediterraneo. And this is a celluloid, and you can just see how this really does pop. It's a celluloid material that a number of pen manufacturers have used in the past. We have had them made from Montegrappa and I think a few other pen manufacturers as well as Leonardo. This does come with a 14 karat gold nib, and this is a medium nib, and I like how it writes. I really do. I do tend to prefer, or have preferred, a little bit more broader nibs on the Leonardos in the past, but this one I find writes very nicely. And then we have this one, and this is the Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero in the Hawaii. And this really is a beautiful pen. I just love that sort of different sort of effect going on there in that pen. It really is a beautiful pen. This comes with a steel nib, and this is a broad nib. As I said, I tend to prefer broad nibs on the Leonardos, and actually typically steel nibs. I find they tend to write a little bit more wetter and a little bit more wider than the gold nibs. So I tend to normally like a broad nib on these. You can post these caps if you want to as well. Just look at that pattern. That really is lovely. So I have this one inked up as well this week. And then I have a couple of Pelicans. This is the Pelican M805, and it's the Ocean Swirl. And you can just see all of that ocean swirling around there. Strangely enough, this is the Ocean Swirl, and then this one, the Leonardo, is the Mediterraneo. So both really, and the Hawaii as well. So really, we've got 3 here that are really sort of positioned as in sort of ocean seafaring pens, but with different colours. So this for me is really nice. I do like the M800 range of Pelicans, and this is a broad and nib, and it's an 18 karat gold nib. They tend to be a little bit more on the firmer side compared to the Pelican M1000 nibs, but they're very good workhorse nibs, I find. And then we have the Pelican M805, and this is the vibrant blue, and again this is a lovely blue pen. It's a cracked ice pen, semi-translucent, and really does look quite nice. You can see the nib in there through that cap. It really is a beautiful pen, and again this comes with a broad 18 karat gold nib, and I just love it. I love writing with this, and again I can post these caps if I wanted to, but I don't need to. And I know some people like and prefer to post their caps. I never quite know the reason why. Maybe you can leave a comment below if you're a cap poster and the reason why you do post your caps or prefer to. I guess it's maybe that you don't have the cap rolling off the desk, although most caps have clips, so they shouldn't roll off the desk, or maybe it's because you don't want to lose it, or maybe you just like that extra weight on the back end of the pen perhaps, and you like to maybe kind of wrestle with it to get that nib to hit the page. I honestly don't know. I'm not a pen cap poster, so I'd actually be interested in hearing why you post your caps. And then we have the beautiful Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog, and this is a lovely ribbon pattern going on there. It's a little bit muted because of the ink in the body of the pen there, but this is a beautiful pen. It comes with a number 6 size Visconti nib. It's a fine nib, and it's made by Bock, the nib. This was my first Visconti, and unfortunately it paved the way for a lot more Viscontis. I think I'm around about 60, 61 Viscontis now in my collection, but this really, for me, is a beautiful writing pen. So it's a pen that I have inked up this week. Great for writing in journals, in notebooks, because it's a fine nib. Even though it's a wet nib, it's not a fire hose nib in terms of what you might see more in a Visconti medium or broad nib, or stub even. And then I have this one inked up, and again another Visconti. This is the Visconti Homo Sapiens, and this is the Midnight in Florence. And I seem to recall at one point I said that I wouldn't be buying this because the whole of the pattern tends to take up most of the body, and there's only a little bit of an ink window here that you can see. But it does change a little bit on some pens. Some pens you have more of an ink window there. And I kind of really wanted more of a sort of transparent body like the London Fog, just with some London Fog purple ribbons instead. But to be honest, I decided I love purple, and I was going to go and buy this anyway, and I did pick it up for a good price, and I am really glad now that I did, because this has a Visconti 23 karat palladium medium nib on it, and it is bouncy and it's fire hose wet. So I really do love writing with this nib. So you can see there it has a broad nib, sorry, a medium nib, but it writes more like a broad nib, but it just really is comfortable. I love the size of the Visconti Homo Sapiens in my hands. So that's my other pen inked up this week. So I think with that, let's go and do a writing sample. So the first pen is the Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the Tectonic Seas. Now, I decided that I would actually ink this up with a little bit more of a bluer ink. So I have, I tend to have a little bit more of a green ink in here because it's a lot of green, but there's also a lot of blue. So this is, we'll do an ink swatch first. And you can see here from this broad nib that it is fairly wet, but it's not fire hose wet. So this is an Atelier Eluso Andromeda, and it's the Tectonic Seas. But you can just see how well this writes. So this is a broad, and it's a still nib. And then the ink in here today is Pelican, Edelstein, and it's Sapphire. But this for me is a really nice blue ink. The next pen is the Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the King Cobra. So, I did say that this is going to have a gold ink in it, and it does. And you can see that gold ink here. It really is quite nice. So this is an Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the King Cobra. And it is a broad still nib, and then the ink in here is Diamine, and it's Shimmertastic, and it's Golden Seas, sorry, Golden Sands. but that for me is quite a nice gold ink, and it does have shimmer particles in the ink. And if I just show you, this is the bottle, and that is the particles. So if I shake it, they all disappear and go back into the ink there. The next pen is the Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the Vulcan's Forge. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, orange inks tend to be a little bit more on the dry side of writing. So this is an Atelier Eluso Andromeda, and this is the Vulcan's Forge, and it's a broad still nib again. And then the ink in here is Sailor, Gentle, Apricot. But that's a beautiful orange ink. The next pen is the Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermilion. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And what I like about this is, although it's a fine nib, it's actually a fine medium nib, but it has a bit of bounce to it. And I like that in this nib. And that's why I actually bought this pen in the end. So this is the Pilot Custom Urushi in the Vermilion. And it is a fine medium nib, and it is an 18 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Mont Blanc, and it is Corn Poppy Red. Now it is getting a little bit low on ink, so you do get a little bit of railroading now and again if I try to push that nib, so I'm going to ink that one back up again in a little bit. The next pen is a Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero in the Mediterraneo. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now this is a 14 karat gold nib, and I do find it's moderately wet. It's not fire hose wet though, but it's wet enough. So this is the, I'm going to abbreviate this, Leonardo Momento Zero in the Mediterraneo. And it is a medium, and it's a 14 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Robert Oster, and it's Australian Sky Blue. But that is, for me, a really nice blue ink. The next pen is the Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero, and this is the Hawaii. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now this is a broad steel nib, so it is going to put down a little bit more of a broader line. So this is the Leonardo Momento Zero, and it's the Hawaii, and it's a broad steel nib. And then the ink in here is Robert Oster, and it's Blue Water Ice, which is a really lovely sort of mid-tone punchy blue, I find. The next pen is the Pelican M805 Ocean Swirl. So we'll do an ink swatch. And I did say that I like how these Pelican M800 series nibs write. They do write quite nice. So this is the Pelican M805 Ocean Swirl. Now I do find that this nib actually sings a little bit, which I tend to not have on a lot of the M800 nibs, but on this one it does. And I'm not that partial to singing nibs, to be honest, but I found some inks actually make it sing more and some inks make it sing less as well. So if you have a nib that starts singing and you don't like the sound, maybe try the different inks. So this is a broad, and it's 18 karat gold nib, and then the ink in here is Diamine O'Donnell. But I do find that that combination of that nib and that ink does actually make it sing more than it does with some other inks. I think I've had that. I tend to have that inked up with Diamine Marine a lot, and that tends not to sing as much. The next pen is the Pelican M805 Vibrant Blue. So we'll do an ink swatch. And you can see here again, this is another broad nib. And it's the Pelican M805, and it's the Vibrant Blue in a broad 18 karat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine Azure Blue, which is a very dark blue, but quite a sort of, I guess more, it's not a navy blue, but I guess it's quite sort of popping blue. The next pen inked up this week is the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now, if you recall, I did say that this is a fine nib. So it's not a fire hose nib either, unlike some Viscontis, but it's wet enough to be wet. So this is the Visconti Homo Sapiens. You can see it's quite wet there. London Fog in a fine 23 karat palladium nib. And then the ink in here is Waterman Inspired Blue. That's a great ink and pen combination. And the next pen is a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence. And I said that this is a medium nib, and we'll do an ink swatch. And you can see that this is a typical, or what was, I'd say, a typical Visconti middle sort of the range, medium nib that tends to write in palladium more like a broad nib. So this is a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence, and it's a medium 23 karat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is KWZ Gummy Berry. But that is a beautiful coloured ink. So I think let's just go through these pens inked up one more time. We have an Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the Tectonic Seas with a broad steel nib inked up in Pelican, Eluso and Sapphire. We have an Atelier Eluso Andromeda King Cobra in a broad steel nib, inked up with Diamine Shimmertastic Golden Sands. We have an Atelier Eluso Andromeda in the Vulcan's Forge in a broad steel nib, inked up with Sailor Gentle Apricot. We have a Pilot Custom Yarushi in the Vermilion with a fine medium 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Mont Blanc Corn Poppy Red. We have a Leonardo Momento Zero Mediterraneo in a medium 14 karat gold nib, inked up with Robert Oster Australian Sky Blue. We have a Leonardo Momento Zero in the Hawaii in a broad steel nib, inked up with Robert Oster Blue Water Ice. We have a Pelican M805 Ocean Swirl in a broad 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Diamine O'Donnell. We have a Pelican M805 Vibrant Blue in a broad 18 karat gold nib, inked up with Diamine Azure Blue. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog in a fine 23 karat palladium nib, inked up with Waterman Inspired Blue. And last but not least, we have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence in a medium 23 karat palladium nib, inked up with KWZ Gummy Berry. So there you have it, that's my currently inked pens for this week. Thanks for watching, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.